Hey guys, this is John, and welcome to a game against Drunkensteiner. This is a climbing the rating ladder game officially, but 24-11, sporting the old Chessmaster logo. Shout out to the game Chessmaster. Awesome computer game that I grew up playing as well, as I'm sure many of you have. So this should be interesting. I am back from Charlotte now, and this is the first video I'm making since I've been back. Let's play c takes d5 here. I'll have to keep the commentary pretty light in this one. So even though this is a climbing the rating ladder game, I'm fully aware of my opponent's strength and the fact that there's no increment. So I'm playing something pretty simple, Exchange Slav. I actually had a game with this at the Charlotte Rapid Tournament this past weekend. So I feel pretty comfortable here. Bishop d6. I could look to trade, but I think bishop g3 is going to be my preference a lot of times in this position, because if we get a trade, it's kind of annoying for black that this file opens up. And I also don't assist the queen in going to d6 right away. And I keep open the option of playing knight e5, outposting the knight, making it awkward for black to resolve the knight situation. All right, so black does castle. Yeah, I think I've been in this exact position before. And bishop d3 or knight e5 are up for consideration. Kind of leaning towards bishop d3. I think that's generally going to be a little more useful before knight e5. Because if knight e5 take with the bishop, knight d7 is a little annoying. So let's go ahead and play the bishop out first. Rook e8. Okay, so now black may be hinting at playing the move e5. We're breaking in the center. So this is a classic moment in the Exchange Slav, or maybe in a London system, same principle, playing knight e5. If I want to do it, it'd be really good to do it now, I think. So the line I'm most concerned with is this. But to my recollection, this is not that big of a deal because of a couple reasons. One, I can play f4. Also, it's debatable if black is even threatening to take on e5 after that happens, because I have a little bishop takes h7 and queen h5 idea to get the pawn back. So let's see if black takes it. It's possible black won't capture, in which case maybe I prop it up with f4. But this is a key moment here on move 11. You'll notice I opened with knight f3, by the way. I wouldn't recommend knight f3 to the beginner, even lower intermediate players. I think to play this move successfully, you have to have some knowledge of d4, because it is kind of transpositional. Ideally, you even have knowledge of how to play the English opening as well, c4 on move 1, because there's a lot of instances where you may want to interweave d4 and English positions. So this is climbing the rating ladder, but again, kind of tailoring it to my own repertoire, and this is based off the strength of the opponent. I'm kind of busting out the A stuff here, guys. Stuff that I play myself against masters. So built a little bit of a time lead here. I do like this. Feeling pretty comfortable. The nice thing about the Exchange Slav, by the way, so that's when you take on d5, is that you don't have to prepare separate weapons against Slav, Semi-Slav, Chebanenko Slav, Schlecter Slav, which is the variation where black plays an early g6. Okay, black does take. Let's take with the pawn. Yep, knight d7. All right, so somewhat of an important moment here. Do I want to castle, allow this, but then do this operation I mentioned, where I will eventually win the pawn back? I think that's pretty decent, but there is bishop d7 at the end, and I think that may keep my advantage in check, if you will. So f4 is probably the more principled move here. Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards that. Keeps the bishop pair. If I go queen h5, black will play g6, so I'm not too taken by that. I'm taking one last quick look at this and the resulting position here. Yeah, I think I'm just not getting quite as much as I would like there. Bishop d7, and it'd be nice if my knight were on d4 already in that position. It's certainly playable, but I'm going to go with the f4 move because I think it's a little more testing. Now, my king is still in the center, and I've got a couple weak pawns, so queen b6 would hit this and this, the pawn on b2 and also e3. I can play queen d2, though, so I did see that, even though I didn't mention it. But be advised, moving the f-pawn early, the forget about it pawn. This is a do as I say, not as I do type of situation, but really the answer is we're being selective, and we're We're not categorically ruling out certain moves like moving the f-pawn when we haven't castled yet, but we have to be aware of the rook, the risks, along with the rook if needed. But the risks. All right, so queen b6. Now, do I want my queen here or here? I'm thinking d2. If I go to e2, there is a chance that d4 and a subsequent opening of the position may not be to my liking. The advantage, though, is I can come to e4 with my queen in some cases. I could play bishop f2, but that would involve giving this pawn, so it's kind of between these two moves. Close call. Now I'm kind of second guessing, because if d4 take, knight takes, queen e4, let's say black defends against the mate threat, there's bishop d4, and I do, or bishop f2 rather. Hitting d4, I like that. Yeah, this is a dilemma I've had before too in this line, now that I think about it. Let's not spend too much time though. It's probable that black will play something with f6. Or maybe knight c5. Yeah, knight c5 is probably what black's going to do next. So also in regards to that, I'm thinking where I should put the queen. So if queen e2, knight c5, bishop b1, let's say d4. Yeah, things are opening up a little bit there. Not sure how much I like that. Let's go to d2. Really close, though. Maybe in a classical game, I'd spend more time on that. But in the interest of keeping this simple, let's just play queen d2. Keeps out of range of this knight a little bit better. Yeah, see that? That was a 1:40 move. This is the classic situation where I personally get in time pressure, deciding between fairly similar looking moves that may ultimately not matter too much. But okay, knight c5 played. Probably come back to b1 here. I do want to keep that bishop, so let's do it. And if black plays rook d8, maybe bishop here to f2. Because they might be ready to play that d4 move. Am I all that upset if black plays d4, though? That might actually make my task a little easier. So I do see a bishop f2, knight e4 is a consideration. Not sure how well that will turn out for my opponent, but let's say castles, d4. And I take even, I know it looks kind of wild to do that, but things are nicely opening up, I think. Rook takes d4, queen e3. And without a discovery down the file, I think black may regret doing that. Or down the diagonal. Could try to pivot this knight to d4. Seems kind of slow, though. So bishop f2 or castles here are the moves I'm looking at. Bishop f2, knight e4, though. I'm not sure how much I like that position. Let's castle. I'm going to dare black to play d4. I'm also trying to do it from a momentum standpoint. I would like black to think in this position so I can try to gain back some time or at least narrow the gap. So a bit of a gut instinct here, some calculation. It seems kind of risky for me on the diagonal, allowing d4, but also this could reverse, and black may regret having weakened the dark squares, leaning towards their own queen. So d4, pawn takes. Let's say if knight takes, I can play queen e3. I think ought to work. Have to watch this knight moving from c5, but I don't see a tactic that would work out for black there in the case of that. So d4, pawn takes, rook takes. Similar option. I could play queen e3. I can maybe play queen f2 if I want to keep this pawn guarded. Queen c2 might even be playable there. Okay, black does play d4. Another option is not even taking at all and just preferring knight e4. But then trade, take e3. Okay, so let's take. I think taking is the way to go. I would predict black's going to take with the knight. I think they're going to try to keep some discoveries in reserve, keep their rook aligned with my queen, but have a piece in between. Okay, now king h1. Although it steps out of a possible check, it would run into a knight coming here, but then there is this, and I can try to go after h7. That may backfire in a hurry for black. But there's knight f5. Probably should move the queen. So let's decide between queen e3 and queen f2. Queen e3 doesn't guard b2. So although that's another pawn that looks pretty risky for black to take, I wonder if f2 is the better square. f2 is just a more no-nonsense square, let's say. Seems difficult for black to develop here. Maybe my next move will be rook here to d1. Yeah, let's play it. So a lot of action on this diagonal towards my king on g1. But again, we're trusting that the open nature of the position, the bishop's controlling territory, my light square bishop patrolling d3, good control over e4. I'm trusting that black doesn't have a good discovery here. And I think that's the case. Also, black's development is kind of hindered. Bishop d7, I can take the knight on d4. Only downside is I can't bring my bishop back to f2, but I could see this bishop coming to h4 to bother this rook. It's not clear to me what black should do on this move right now, because if their bishop is developed and it can come to, let's say, e8 or c6 or something, it might be a slightly different story, but I have all my pieces out. Okay, black retreats, but isn't knight e4 starting to become an issue? Black does have knight a4 there. Okay, I'm liking this, folks. This is starting to look pretty nice. Can't go knight a4 right away because takes and they defend. So I can definitely play knight e4 and get my rook in, or my knight into d6. I could throw bishop h4 in. Maybe I do that first. That might be a good thing to do. Just force that rook over. There's even some knight d5 type stuff. Yeah, let's, I think play this. Is rook d2 a threat? Rook d2, don't think works for black. Knight e4, I have bishop f2. Yeah, let's throw this in. g5 seems kind of preposterous. Maybe with more time I would look at that. Again, doing a little bit of trust here with 10-0, 10-minute no increment. But I would really doubt if this works. Yeah, I can take with a pawn, among other things. So probably black's going to play rook e8. So mentally preparing myself for that. And I do like on knight e4, let's say knight a4, I can go knight d6 and hit that rook with tempo. That's pretty convenient. And I think black has to quite carefully work their way out of the resulting position. Even after the queen trade, that's going to be tough for them. So question is, do I have something better? Maybe I keep queens on board. Maybe I go king h1 and I try to attack. Because that king is actually looking pretty weak for my opponent. That might be the thing to do. So knight e4 would definitely trade queens, but you know what? I'm going to play for the attack. Let's go for it. So just step out of this alignment. Yep, they desperately want a queen trade. I think we both know what's up here. Okay, queen c2 threatens mate, but this one seems a little more testing. Yeah, let's come here. I'm not going to worry about the b2 pawn at this point. No queen trade. And I'm already menacing stuff like bishop f6. And I think I'm going to get at the king sooner or later in an event of that nature. People say that Exchange Slav is boring, but this is what can happen, folks, when you get into some of these Exchange Slav middle games. It can blow up. Yeah, I'm feeling real good here. I'm almost certain the engine would say that I'm doing very, very well. But that doesn't matter when this is a human versus human game and we both have low time. Okay, f5. Probably going to take that en passant. Any reason to do anything else? Like a3, bishop a2 seems kind of slow. Yeah, let's take en passant. Queen h3, there's e5 maybe. I can take f6, rook takes. Queen h4, but then rook h6. Yeah, okay. I see black's point. Okay, what's a good attacking move here? Queen d3. Yeah, queen h3, e5 I'm not liking so much. Bishop f6 would be consistent, but I don't know if that's the best. Bishop takes, rook takes, knight e4, rook g6. Let's take it. I'm not sure, so I got to keep the momentum going. I have a minute 25. Let's look to do that. I'm hunting this rook. I'm looking for knight g5, maybe queen h4. It depends where this rook goes. Let's see. I think I can bail into some endgames too that are very good for me if absolutely necessary. So mostly I want to keep it moving on the clock. Goes rook f5, but that seems to allow this knight g5 move. I don't know what black's intending with this, so let's ask them. Oh, they're just going to give the exchange. Yeah, take. Okay. So I sense they're going to go after the pawn on b2 and just pray, basically. Maybe I can play for checkmate, like queen coming to g6. Let's see. Okay, doesn't take the pawn on b2. Black is just trying to develop. So let's play b3. I think pretty sensible. And I just got to convert this up the time. Or up the material and not the time. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. It's so much harder to be coherent when you're playing good players like this. Players around your own rating. You guys know the drill. All right, let's go queen f2. So this bishop is kind of annoying. It's a pretty strong piece. I wouldn't at all be upset with a trade of the knight for the bishop. So let's say black plays rook e8 here. I'm even thinking of just rook over to f2 in the interest of trying to simplify. Maybe rook e1 makes sense too, though. Yeah, actually, rook e1 looks pretty good. Let's do that. So if take, I can take there. Black does this, but now this move maybe. Ah, trick, though. They have a trick. Let's not fall for it. They were looking for bishop takes g2 there. So let's step out of the range. That would have been a good way to blow it for me. Allow bishop takes. Yeah, they're trying to come into the position, threaten some stuff. I get it. I get it. Let's come. Let's go here. Come here. So threaten this. Come here. Yeah, really pushing on the clock, guys. I know. Rook d7 would have been good there. But okay, bring up the king. 18.6. What can I do with this? This is a rated game too, by the way. Remember, John, you can stack pre-moves on chess.com. Let's send this in. Start making some progress here. Push this pawn to b4. But my opponent has a knight, so it's annoying. I'm trying to get in. Oh, and I just blundered that. Okay, now I probably got to pre-move a little bit. Try to go after this pawn. Yeah, I think I'm going to lose this, folks. I'm trying. Oh, yeah, I lost. Ooh, yeah, I lost to the backward knight move. I didn't see that the knight on a6 would hit my rook on c7. Focused on going after g7. So, moral of the story: don't leave yourself with 11 seconds left in an endgame. But yeah, I felt like otherwise that was pretty good in the middle game. I think the position's pretty critical for black right around here. So my opponent did a good job of keeping it complicated later. Just kind of one of these positions that's going to take a while to convert. I don't think I missed any major tactics or anything. Probably should have played rook d7 a little bit sooner. But yeah, in terms of the opening, I think that was a pretty good outcome, but took too much time to get there. And I couldn't work a miracle in the end. I should have stacked the pre-moves, though. I told myself you can stack the pre-moves, and I didn't stack the pre-moves. Might have had a chance because my opponent was really taking a lot of time there towards the end. Okay, so what can we glean from this game? Wow, did that really send me down to 25-38? I lost 177 rating points in this game. Okay, that's pretty funny. 177 rating points. Well, no matter. Yeah, so I'm going to be curious what the computer says about queen d2 versus queen e2. I do think this position when the knight comes to e5 is already just very good for white if black doesn't have a plan. Like if black doesn't have some precise continuation or follow-up here, I think it's going to get out of hand for them pretty quickly, as the game sort of illustrated. Maybe d4, though, sped up the process, but I think if black can't play d4 here, well, maybe they could go bishop d7 and kind of chill, but then there's bishop h4, bishop f2. I think if black can't do something to push back against the two bishops and open the position when there's this alignment issue, white should be in very good shape. So, yeah, again, just from a practical standpoint, whether you get into the Slav with this move order, knight f3, or you're a d4 player and you get into it like this, c takes d5 is a pretty good weapon to keep the position simple and avoid having to prepare different systems against Slav, Semi-Slav, Chebanenko, all those lines I listed. Okay, let's do a quick game review. Yeah, competitive game. This is why it's so tough to play and commentate against strong players, like what you saw there. I try it anyways, but I fully admit my level is not as high when I'm doing that, and I have trouble balancing my desire to provide good instruction and also playing fast. So, all right, let's take a look at the opening book. I have to do an abbreviated analysis here as well because I have to go pretty soon. So this is all pretty standard. You bring the knights out. There are ways you can play this with an early bishop f4, but since I opened with knight f3, I'm already stuck with my knight there, and this is generally how I play it anyways. So you get the bishop out to f4. There are London system vibes. The structure is pretty fixed compared to a London system, so there's even an early trade, if you will, compared to that opening. But there's a lot of similarities with this bishop here. Black chose a6. There's also bishop f5, e6. Those tend to be commonly played as well. If we pop open the opening book. Yeah, bishop f5 is most popular, a6, e6. Some more offbeat stuff, knight e4, knight h5. I wouldn't necessarily recommend those. Bishop f5, I personally think, is the toughest move here, copying white. I've had a lot of games like this, and then queen b3. White can try to use this slight annoyance against b7, but black is okay if they know what they're doing. It's just a game. But yeah, bishop f4, a6, rook c1. This move is kind of nice. Sometimes I do delay e3, but oftentimes the play does gravitate towards the c file anyways, so we get that there. Yeah, and black shows somewhat of a defensive move here again, e6, kind of mixing systems. I do think bishop f5 is a little more ambitious. Again, just consulting the opening book for a moment, that is the top move. But okay, we're still in known territory here. Bishop d6. Okay, so why don't I play knight e5 right away? I could, but after takes knight d7, notice that I can't play f4. It's harder to guard my pawn. Queen h5 can run into g6. So maybe I could try something like this, since at the end of the line, black would lose a piece. But in my experience, it's usually better to play knight e5 when f4 is coming as a prop up. It's just a more useful operation. So that's why I go bishop g3. Black could take on g3. We get this structure, in which case I probably wouldn't go for knight e5, but I would retain the option of playing something like bishop d3 and maybe think about attacking on the king side, like maybe some sort of queen d3. Actually, in fact, with knight e5, you can try to combine these plans so that if ever there's a trade, maybe your queen can come up and this knight will have been driven away from guarding h7. So I shouldn't say that, if you take this way, you won't play knight e5. It's still very possible if you want to attempt to attack. Okay, so yeah, black castled, bishop d3, just developing. Yeah, and now we're still following some games. At this point, white has castled. Knight e5 has been played in some games, and I think it's pretty good. Yeah, the engine gives it as the top move. And of course, if black takes with the knight on e5, they run into the fork. This is one of the main points as well. And the knight's annoying. If I get to play f4 and prop it up, then I'm going to further cement my dominance of this e5 square. So black did take with the bishop, pawn takes, knight d7. Yeah, here I was debating whether I should castle or not, because there is this little trick that we should be aware of, where we can do this and then check, fork the king and the knight. This only regains the pawn, though, and I just didn't see much of an advantage if we take this line to its conclusion here. Bishop d7, black is completing development. I might do this if my knight was already somewhere like this, because then I could perhaps go rook c7. But it does look like f4 was the better move. Queen b6. Yeah, I probably just wasted too much time like really nitpicking these type of moves. They're pretty close. Queen d2, queen e2. Actually, dead heat. Bishop f2 is another option given, guarding this. But yeah, I kind of like this just because when d4 happens, I feel like taking is easier to justify when the knight is not coming in to attack the queen. So black went for this. f6 would also be, I think, pretty consistent. Something like this. I believe I've looked at, if not this position, exact position before, something real similar in the past. So, okay, knight c5. I want to keep my light square bishop, so I go here. Rook d8. Castles. Bishop h4. Yeah, I should have thought about this here. I didn't think about it in this position, bothering the rook. But okay, castles. And here we go, d4. Yeah, just the more I looked at this position, the more I realized it was probably not good for black. In the absence of a direct tactic, not good for black to open this diagonal towards my king, because they start to experience problems. So, yeah, rook takes. Queen c2 does make sense going after this. I think also queen e3 or queen f2 was on my radar. What about queen f2? Yeah, this is also clear edge, because it's hard for black to unwind this pressure. What happens if they just play something like bishop d7, rook f d1, go for a trade, and even take with the knight? Interesting. Okay, yeah, I could just see a lot of these positions sort of simplifying down to a setup where black is regretting opening the position for the bishops. Even if they don't lose something right away, they might be regretting that. So I think overall this was just not a good plan for black, but it took me a while to, achieve a better position. Yeah, black retreated here. Because again, black's kind of stuck on this position. I do empathize with them here because bishop d7 would lose the knight. This is the natural move to connect the rooks. So if they can't do that, yeah, rook d7 looks super awkward. That's the top engine move. They can't play bishop d7. They're hurting a lot actually. So they retreated the knight. Bishop h4, yep. Rook here. And now I opted to go for a plan of keeping the queens on board, play for an attack. I could play knight e4 and let's say knight a4, b3, interesting. But even in the event of a trade, I was looking at endgames like this. Seems clearly better for white. But I also kind of sensed that black wasn't organized very well, so I went for the attack. Queen c2, another consideration. Yeah, here I was really debating. I wanted to keep the 2 bishops on, but it does look like keeping the momentum going is more important. And I was pretty surprised by rook f5. I think that's a bad move for black. Maybe everything is bad, though. I was expecting more rook g6 in this position. Something like this. Maybe rook h6 right away. I thought black would make an effort to guard the h-pawn or attack my queen. But it does look like this is also pretty good. Yeah, something like here. Rook fd1. Can't go here yet, but this becomes a threat now, I suppose. Some interesting tactics where I could even give up my 2 minor pieces for a rook and a pawn, but then I get a check in and win this bishop. So it does look like black is kind of scrambling. I mean, they haven't completed their development yet. Their king's a little open. Pawn structure's a bit wonky. So it stands to reason that they're under pressure at this moment. Yeah, and then after knight g5, instead of moving the rook and losing the h-pawn, which probably would have led to a swift demise for black when I get my queen involved, they correctly gave up the exchange. And didn't take on b2. I thought they would go here, in which case I think I was planning something like this, or queen g6, I think I had mentioned. So they opted to just complete development and pressure me on the clock, which is probably a good decision in hindsight. Maybe with more time, I would have tried to keep queens on and kept some pressure. But this bishop was kind of annoying. That was the main hindrance to converting this position. Almost blundered here, knight d2. Looking to get rid of this bishop, which allowed that. So I think my opponent sniffed that out. And this was just a little bit annoying to have to navigate. This is what cost me some time. You know, here you can see over 10 seconds spent. Here I'm threatening knight takes f5, but black quickly shifts. And I'm finding good moves, but not in time. Yeah, and then later blundering, getting this, but I got to move my rook first to convert this cleanly. Yeah, rook c4, guard this pawn. Maybe even something like, probably this would be a better square. Like try to do this and then knight e6. So if I put the rook on e7, there'd be knight d5 here. So something like that should be winning. Yeah, and here in hindsight, I wish I would have played h4. I realized that after I started panicking and pre-moving, but h4 would have kept black's king out. This might be a technical win because I feel like I can do what I did in the game, but black won't have the inroad towards my pawns. But yeah, h4 is a good move by black, creating a means of getting the king in. And although I won the b pawn, I need something precise here. Maybe bring the knight back this way, although black could try to attack it. Let's see, knight d4, king here, king d6. Aha, go after the bishop. Interesting. And how does this work? Let's say bishop e8, king e5. Okay, so hold the f4 pawn and then go raid these pawns. Ah, gotcha. So defends f4, also double attacks f5. Wants me to do something like this, where I would suppose if black eventually trades the bishop for the pawn and takes this one, they might not be able to eliminate this last pawn. Yeah, we get there like just in time with a maneuver like this, and we're able to defend f4, stop g5, and we'll win with our remaining f-pawn. So yeah, that probably is winning. The game, I think, should end up in a draw. I can give my knight for the 2 pawns at some point, but trying to not lose on time here was pretty tough. Too tough. Okay, interesting. Sorry, analysis gang. This is an abbreviated analysis. Kudos to my opponent for putting the pressure on me at the end of this game, fully realizing the clock situation. But I think as a model for how to play an Exchange Slav here, specifically against this a6, e6 approach, and black keeping their light square bishop locked in, this was a pretty good model, jamming that knight into e5. Some crossover to the London system as well. So let me know if you guys have any questions or comments. I'd love to hear it. And thanks for the support during the Charlotte tournament. Like I said, I might post some game analysis. I haven't decided yet, so please don't hold me to anything. But all right, thanks again for watching, guys. I'll try to regain these 177 or whatever rating points at some point. All right, later.